Hello, everyone. Welcome to this star-studded show of urology. Before I start, I have to say no better occasion than doing it on a Gandhi Jayanti. Uh, and as Mahatma Gandhi rightly said, the future depends on what you do today. And hopefully, the stalwarts who are going to talk to us will tell us how they move the future to present and how what we can do today to get our future right again. So, welcome to this iTrue Secret Superstars of Urology event. iTrue is international training and research in uro-oncology and endourology. We've got lots of secret superstars, and they will talk about not urology, but other aspects of the field they're associated with. And we have with us Dr. Zishan and Dr. Venugopal and lots of other speakers who we will introduce in time. First of all, I have to say, I have to thank Dr. Venugopal for agreeing to be a part of this. I don't think I have got the qualification to tell all about what he has done and what he has achieved, but I'll make an effort. He started his career as an MBBS in 1961. That's at least 15 years before I was born. So you can imagine he's a real stalwart in urology. And then he did his MS in 1966, his MCH in urology, one of the first ones to do it in 1968. And then he joined KMC Manipal in 1971, becoming the head of the department there in 1974. Going forward, fast forward, the career was, had a lot of awards and a lot of, India's first, Karnataka's first. Going forward, became the president of USI between 1982 and 1984, had a urology gold medal in 1986, and then became the chairman of IJU between 1992 to year 2000. He was then the founder of Karnataka State Chapter of India, also an examiner of MCH, lots of prizes in research, and it is a real pleasure to welcome him. And as it happens, I studied in KMC Mangalore, and I know his son, Dr. Anand Venugopal, is the deputy medical superintendent there. It's a real pleasure to open the floor and give this next part of the talk to Dr. Venugopal. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhaskar, for your kind words. First of all, I would like to thank iTrue for giving me this opportunity to be with you all today. I think the most important thing in all this thing is iTrue is a young nascent body, and it is aiming to recognize the young budding urologists of the world to join hands together for the progress of urology across the world. In India, one of the major problems that we have been encountering is exposure to the international arena as far as urology is concerned. And this particular lacunae may soon be closed with the introduction of iTrue in India. We are today discussing on subjects which is not really scientific as far as urology is concerned, but the four giants that is assembled here today to give us an idea of what and how they went about developing urology is a real lesson for all of us, including an old man like me. I think their efforts that they have put in to create the various areas they could put together and make this India proud, and that's how I look at it. Now, to introduce Mahesh Desai is an extremely difficult task. Who doesn't know Mahesh Desai? I think Mahesh Desai is known by everybody and everywhere, not only nationally, but globally also. I don't want to go into the length and breadth of what Mahesh Bhai has achieved, because it will be a formidable task for anybody to go through the entire list and gamut that he has produced. He's a chief of MPUH, Nadiad, and for a long, long time he has been holding that post. I know Mahesh Bhai for the past over 4 decades now, and probably I know him by quite a bit because of my frequent visits to Nadiad. I think Mahesh has done a fantastic job in developing that Multibai Patel Urological Hospital to the present status from where it was in the late 70s or early 80s. I think Mahesh will remember very vividly that some of the time that I have spent in his old hospital, Dhanlakshmi, where he just returned from UK, I think, and started doing uh, urological work, exclusive urological work in Ahmedabad. From that day, he has been visiting Nadiad during those days for 3 days in a week, as I understand. And slowly and slowly, after the death of V.V. Desai, he moved over to Nadiad and took up a full reins of the hospital as it is. I think before I conclude as far as the introduction to Mahesh is concerned, because there's so much to talk about him, but so little time is available to introduce him. So, as a thing, I would like to place on record that my appreciation, my love, and my sincere, uh, uh, sincere love for him for whatever he has done for India. I would also like to place on record my appreciation to his own colleague, who is no more with us, Dr. Snehal Patel, who has helped Mahesh during the formative years of Nadiad. I visited Nadiad umpteen number of times. I don't know how many times. And I think I had great privilege to be present for the 40th year alumni meet at Nadiad last year. I think with this, I request Dr. Nadia and Mahesh Desai to start his talk. Thank you very much. Mahesh?
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Venu. It is nice to see you. And I also thank iTrue for giving me this opportunity to share some of the my journey in MPUH, where Venu Gopal was already part of it. So I'm sure you would like to know about it. So I will share my screen and okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
So I've been asked to talk about transforming Nadiad into a global urological hub. Well, Nadiad has this Santram Mandir, which is not a, there is no deity, is not a religious temple. It is a social temple. And beauty about this mandir is nobody in Nadiad goes to bed empty stomach, irrespective of their thing. It is a wonderful place, and it has been known for more than 100 years. And so I come from there. So Multibai Patel Urology Hospital, a monument of dedication, devotion, commitment of a few for so many. And that's why we feel every life deserves world-class healthcare. Well, not far from Nadiad, a village called Matar, I was born, and I was the youngest of my brothers and sisters. And my mother was had already decided that I'm going to be a doctor. Unfortunately, before I joined the medical college, she underwent surgery and she had a complication, and she died the next day. So I could not, but that made me a more determined to be a doctor, which could do something. And I know the feeling, and we could avoid that. Of course, my father took over from there. And then, of course, I met Nalini. Nalini is my classmate, and she has become an anesthetist. And she has been, an anesthetist knows everything. And she always guides me what to do and how to do it. She's a friend, philosopher, and guide. And then, of course, I have a son, Mihir, who become a urologist. That's credit goes to my father. And then he is at the moment chief of robotic surgery in USC in USA. Most important is this is the BJ Medical College in Pune. When my teacher was Dr. Bode, he was the one who really was a taskmaster, but he inspired me to be good, and I'm really grateful to it. And then Mr. Tafil, who's made me a urologist. I was with him at Lewisham and then at Dartford for 5 years. And till I returned home. When I came back, I couldn't join medical college as I was from Maharashtra. So I opened my Dhanlakshmi Urology Hospital in 1976 and started the practice. At that time, the Muljubai Patel Urological Hospital was under construction in 1978. And when it started, the Virendra Desai invited me. He was my senior in England, so I knew him. And then I was shuffling between these two hospitals when Pradeep was taking care of all the patient and helped me. Without him, I would not have been able to do what I have been done. So let me start how the MPUH started. This is a Virendra Desai who was a senior to me by 4 years, and I took his job in England. And then he came back and started a practice. And soon he realized that problem of urology cannot be tackled completely in a private nursing home. You need an institute. And we are living in a stone belt. And there are lots of diseases which are neglected. People were unaware. And for that reason, he felt that he needed an institution, and he was first getting frustrated. And his friend Prahlad Patel realized that. And they talked to the Achho Kaka, who was a philanthropist, and they all decided that we should do to help Virendra Desai, because he was a very dynamic man and a very knowledgeable and helpful. So they approached Jairam Das Patel, and Jairam Das Patel was from Nadiad, but was settled in Bombay, and he readily gave the money and helped us, and he became a chairman, and he built a hospital on the name of his father, Muljubai Patel. Muljubai Patel was the first principal, Indian principal of Rajkumar College in Rajkot. Otherwise, before that, all Britishers were it was a princely college, and most of the people studying there were from the royal family. And this hospital was built, and the Sanjay Reddy came and they inaugurated in a place like Nadiad. And the first thing he got is the 2 dialysis machine, and we started taking care. Actually, didn't have a nephrologist till Dr. Raja Bukar joined us, and we were doing the dialysis ourselves and trying to treat the patient. But then we could see the result. And then within a year or so, he decided that we should do the renal transplant, because how long you're going to do the dialysis. And in 79, he sent Dr. Raja Bukar and Ajwani, who was a pathologist, to Denmark to learn the transplant. He already knew about the transplant, and the technician also went to learn it. And then this was the initial team. This is a Snehal Patel. This is Venugopal's student and colleague later on. And Satish Bhai, Praveen Bhai, and 2 nephrologists and Virendra Bhai. We were the first team, and we did a first transplant on 6th April 1980. And that was very tension, with the full tension. We stayed overnight, and after that also for another 8 years we were staying overnight. We did it on Sunday, so everybody was free, but we did open surgery, and this is the transplant. And then we did a good job that time, but out of 10, 4 survived, and they survived for more than 30 years. So we did something good, but 6 did not survive. They had some complication. So we thought that every complication we discussed, and we tried to find out how can we avoid it. And we both went to USA. At that time, we attended a SIU conference in San Francisco. And that time we heard Peter Alkin and Christian Chaucy talking about the ESWL and PCNL. So there was a technological explosion, and we heard them. And then we were wondering, because we have a large stonework. But then I went to the Downstate Medical Center in Brooklyn to spend time with the there to look at the transplant program. Unfortunately, Virendra Desai had some heart problem, and he underwent a bypass. Unfortunately, he could not survive that bypass surgery, and he died on 1st December. He was a really friend, philosopher, and guide, fearless, daredevil surgeon, and man with a conviction and vision which I indicated resulted into the establishment of MPUH, which is giving the world-class care. When he died and the news came, everybody thought that this hospital is going to close down. And then knowing him, it was unfair that we should allow that thing happen. Though we all were not staying in Nadiad, but we decided. And I asked Dr. Rajapukar if he has got any transplant waiting, and he said yes. I said next Sunday we will do it. And then that time we had modified the immunosuppression regime, reduced the cortisone dose according to our mean body weight, introduced the cyclosporin, modified the ureteroneocystostomy, and on 30th June 1983 we did the 11th transplant. After that we didn't look back. Then over the year, we were doing the transplant, and then we realized that 70% of the donors were all women, and they were giving them a big scar. And we thought that that is not fair. And at that time, Dr. Gill, he was doing a laparoscopic surgery, and he had done some laparoscopic surgery in donor. We invited him, and we did a first laparoscopic surgery in India in 1999. And then we also did a single port surgery, which my student, Dr. P.P. Rao, was the first one to do. But for the young girl who is very important that we could do the single port and don't give a scar. And this is what we did. And it made it possible to do it in the young people. So initial phase was 1 to 10 was looking at the complication, how to reduce it. So quality improvement till we finished the 500, and then we consolidated up to 1,000, and now it is a phase of excellence. And we have done the transplant in a different laparoscopically less donor, retransplant in 82, third transplant in 2 patients, cadaveric transplant, and then of course now we are doing a robotic donor nephrectomy and renal transplant, especially in obese patient. At that time, we were coming on doing the transplant on Sunday. And then I remember very often for 4 or 5 months, we never had a single day off because we have to come on Sunday. We used to stay overnight in Nadiad because of the transplant patient. Monday, I used to do OPD. And that time, Dr. Jairam Bhai decided it was too much. And he built a extension of the hospital. And we had a separate transplant unit, where so we can do the transplant any time of the week. And then we started having the Sunday off. And this is the robotic donor nephrectomy and transplant. This is the patient from Africa whom we have done the 3rd transplant, we did it. And there are these patients who are all survived for more than 25 to 30 years. And but along with the transplant, we started, it was a really giving all the morale to the staff to do the transplant within 2 years of the establishing the hospital and the place like Nadiad, not even a town, and then we started developing the small department. The Bhaktawar came. Actually, Dr. Virendra Desai had already ordered a urodynamic machine before he died. We didn't know, and we got a letter, and that the machine came. And then we requested Bhaktawar to come and help us, and we started a department of urodynamics. At that time, we were doing all the open surgery through the Gil Vernet or extended Gil Vernet or inotropic nephrolithotomy. That was also advanced, but still it was all the thing. Till that time, we started attending the WCE, and Karlsruhe attended the WCE in 1984. While coming back from Karlsruhe, I went to Switzerland to a friend of mine, Sushil Sangvi, he was there. And he had just come back from the hospital, and he had a stone in the kidney, and Dr. Bocard, he removed the stone by PCNL. So he took me to meet him, and after discussing, he gave me a small cassette which showed the technique of PCNL. And then I must have gone through that cassette 500 times. And that time, Dr. Arthur Smith came to Bombay Hospital, and he demonstrated live on 1984, and in 85 we started doing the PCNL in Nadiad only by seeing the video. Nobody there to assist us, and then we started doing it. And Sabnis was with us, and we were doing it, but we found that there was something missing in puncturing the kidney. Fluoroscopy was not all that good. So I heard about the ultrasound. I went to Denmark, and then I learned the ultrasound, and then we bought the ultrasound machine and started doing the ultrasound puncture. And ultrasound become a part of our life in the clinical and in the ward, in the operation theater, everywhere. And I have more than 13 machines scattered all over the places. And I feel because of the ultrasound, we bought it for the kidney puncture, but then the probe I got was a rectal probe, and I started looking at the BPH and the cancer prostate. Till that time, for the say cancer prostate, only thing you do is orchidectomy and give a horn one. But now we started doing the early diagnosis, biopsy, and then doing it. Most important thing was that after we thought that we were doing this, we must publish our result and then critically analyze to find out whether we are doing correct or not. And then we should look at the criticism constructively and then try to improve ourselves. And we presented in Andrology Society all our work on the stone. We were not doing so much of a ureteroscopy. And USICON in Ahmedabad in '89, which Venu Gopal also attended, and Paris Castro and Steve Detler came, and they demonstrated the ureteroscopy, the flexible ureteroscopy and the rigid ureteroscopy. I tell you, in '90, in the next conference of USICON, there are 24 papers on a ureteroscopy. So that was the impact of this thing. And I became a friend with Steve Detler, and then Steve Detler devised this stone cone, and I did a clinical trial and did 50 cases, and we presented. And then in American Association of Geosurgeon, and because of that, I got a member in the Geosurgeon. That is a very stimulating organization where I learned lots of things. I learned how to present, how to look at the new research in a way it is benefited. During this time, Dr. Bhandari, Mahendra Bhandari came to Nadiad to see our work. And after seeing the work and after seeing, he said, Mahesh, it is a criminal if you don't use this material for a teaching. And then Ajit Phadke pointed out that we can do, you can do it. But I said, we are not a teacher yet. We are not a qualified teacher. He said, you take Dr. Bapat because he has just retired and he may be available. But at that time, Venugopal was with us in '89. And then he stayed with us for one week. And then he drafted, how do you start a department and what you need and everything. He wrote it down. And then and he was, of course, stayed with us, he guided us. And then we prepared a draft and applied for a DNB. And then it was granted after about 2 years. Dr. Bapat became the chair of the urology department, and Vidya Acharya was a chair of the nephrology. And then we started a DNB course. First, we got a 1 seat, then we got a 2 seat, then we got a 4 seat. Now we got a 6 seats per year. And then Dr. Shyam Joshi joined us. And then we were a team, and Snehal was a great help to me. And we both were, in the absence of Virendra Bhai, we both were running together. He was coming twice, I was coming twice. And then on Saturday, we all used to meet. Bapat sir used to come, Shyam Joshi used to come. We used to do a teaching. And we have our student also, they did well, and by getting a gold medal. And I will tell you about that later on. And then what I was convinced that to make it a popular, to bring the technology saves the life. Technology improves the results. And to popularize the technology, you must do live surgery. And also you should record and then pass on the recording to the people. So here in 1998, we did a second endology course, and Madhav Kamath did a video journal, and then he took out 3 cassettes of the whole operating work, and then we demonstrated every part of the PCNL. And that was a really turning point in many people's life. And then we expanded the indication of PCNL and everything. I would not discuss too much because that is my subject and I can go on for a year, but we tackled everything. And the PCNL become our, ESWL was a little disappointing though, because the clarity, I mean, the results were not very good, 66%, 68%. So what I thought of is a microperk where the residual stones are there. I can puncture and clear with a laser. And so I devised the microperk as an alternative to ESWL. But lately, because the more energy is available, which can polarize the stone into a powder and which can be sucked out. And in last 3 years, we are using this 4 energy, Moses, thulium laser, shock pulse, and Urology. And then we can dust the stone into a powder, and then all powder can be sucked out. And here is a post-operative result. It is more than 500 cases, and here you have 100% clearance. And that we were trying to achieve since 1982. We did an inotropic nephrolysotomy just to make sure that with minimum complication we can clear the complete stone. But most important is the recurrence of the stone, which needs to be addressed. At the moment, the PCNL is we have done more than 30,000 stone cases. The PCNL is the #1 method we are using. Ureteroscopy for the lower ureteric stone, RIRS for the upper ureteric stone. But now we are combining PCNL and ureteroscopy to reduce the complication. And these are all the patients which has been coming and they've been reporting again and again. But at that time, we were doing the only difference between the general surgeon and urologist was the TURP. And we started doing the TURP, and we learned from monopolar for a bipolar to vaporizer, the laser, and the Prostajet, and we did a tuna. All the new technology we adapted in Nadiad. We tried out all the things because very often in young patient, 50 to 60, we thought we should do a minimum invasive surgery. We don't want to give them a total TURP where they can have a retrograde ejaculation and a little bit miserable. So we were trying that.
Okay, it's just here. Okay, last
here we did hydroablation, and then most important thing was here patient can be monitored under the ultrasound, and you can clear the exactly measure the transitional zone and can clear it out, and patient can have the catheter out next day and can do it. But what is most important, we did all the clinical trials. And after doing clinical trial, we came out and we published the paper. But at the same time, we utilized that material to teach the next generation at that time, because this is important to teach them. And then we also looked after the different department. We did the uroradiology. Then there was infertility and impotency. The Rubin Shah was still he's in charge of that department. And then endocrinology instruction courses we did. And most of the people, Roy Chelly, Nageshwara, and all the people who interested in teaching, where we went together. And here is on the ultrasound, which was my favorite. And this is a tuna. And the department of the pediatric urology we started. And then we tied up with Cincinnati and Philadelphia Children's Hospital. Nowadays, they come in January and they stay for about a week. And this is an extrophy clinic. And this lady is the president of the International Extrophy Organization. And she gets the patient and then they come to Nadiad. We do free of charge, take care of them. Sometimes they stay for 2 months. This girl came from Africa for 2 months, but she was totally cured. And she is a different person altogether. But somehow with this, I got an opportunity. One day, this Arthur Smith phoned. He said, Mahesh, can you do a video urology conference? Because the person who was going to do it somehow cannot do it. And I had only 8 months. And with the help of all the friends, we did the video urology conference. And that was the beginning of getting international. And then I attended all the endourology conferences. We made lots of friends. Making a friend is one, but getting a knowledge from them was the most important. And all these friends, they helped us to do the knowledge. We made a collaboration with Cleveland Clinic and Dr. Inderbit Gill and Dr. Kau, Mihir, and all these people. They came to time to our hospital to do the clinical trials. And our boys also went to their places to do it. And again, we invited I made lots of friends. Glenn Preminger, he came in 2002 to Nadiad to do the workshop, and he showed the flexible ureteroscopy, and we learned that flexible ureteroscopy is not so difficult, and we can do it. That gave us a view that the theater can be modernized. We modernized the theater, and then because we got because we did well in video, we did WCE. Now, for me, WCE getting to India is most important. I wanted to show the world what Indian urologists can do. And at the same time, I wanted the Indian urologists to know what is happening in the world. And I think the WCE in Mumbai was a turning point for India. At the moment, I don't think any urologist in India is not doing endourology or PCNL or TURP or any of the ureteroscopy. We are masters. We got lots of material, so we have learned. So it was an opportunity for our people to learn by having this conference. This is the biggest advantage. And this is Arthur Smith and Ajit Fadke. And then we did a live surgery in Nadiad. We transmitted to Bombay. And that was the first time it was done in also the Endourology Society, the live surgery. And then these are the people who attended the conference. At the end of this thing, I was discussing with the Segura, what should we do? We are left with some money. He said, you utilize for a teaching. And we made a JAPAC. And the JAPAC, we made it, the logo was enter to learn and exist to serve. And we made different equipment, a monitor. And here is a Sham Joshi doing on the animal. And then we had a dry lab, wet lab discussion, and different courses we did here in this JAPAC. So MicroPerk, we did it optimizing the stone treatment because the international people. We started an oncology department. Now we were starting diagnosing prostate cancer, the bladder cancer, and then we started doing. During this time, I was active in SIU and I became a SIU president-elect. And I started the live surgery. And I would like to share that when we started JAPAC, we did 112 courses and 7,998 people attended. And in SIU, I did only 4 cases and 18,000 people they attended. And this is the educational scale in so many countries were attending this, were locked to the webcast. So this is the best way to teach is by the website. Now this is our urology alumni who has now reached almost 90. And I tell you, all of them have exceeded our expectation, and they are masters. And they are some of them are innovators, and they are doing a wonderful job. And there are the observers who has come to learn. Most of them come to learn the PCNL. They're also on the nephrology side, and these are the odd observers from all over the world. They have come for a period of 1 month or 2 months. With the Egypt, we have a tie-up that every month 4 boys will come round the year, and they'll come especially to learn endourology. And there are the people. And those teachers who have attended, this is the wall of fame, where all the teachers, they came, they are on the here who has contributed. Some of them are Indian, some of them are from abroad. This is a total course we have done. And this is the trials we have done, more than 24 trials we have done. And this is the public. I think publication is very important. I think I appreciate Venugopal because he was insisting that what you do, you must make a write-up and then try to find out because it is a peer-reviewed and you find your faults, you can improve upon it. And then we went on doing publication one after another. We have done now more than 240 publications. I'm just going through it. And then this year, we have done 11 publications. We have a SIU fellow, 6 months they come, and we can see that they have come from all different places from the world. And this is the Endourology Fellowship. It's 2-year fellowship, and mostly the people there from India, they have taken the advantage. And this is a DNB student. Now with the latest result, we have 92 DNB students, and they are 100% result. Nephrology also similar, 54 student passed. And then we learned laparoscopy with Gill and Mihir. And then they said that the future is a robot. And in 2010, we had a robot. And here in last 40 years, we have done 6,000 open surgery, 4,000 laparoscopy. Still, it is cheaper than the robot. And the robot, we have done about 1,500 robotic surgery. We have got Ramakrishna Bajaj National Quality Trophy. I think you aim for excellence and you have to work hard, and then somebody will recognize that. We didn't restrict ourselves to only our hospital. This was 4 lakhs homes in Kutch, and it was a terrible disaster. We got to Bidra camp, which is a small hospital, and then 4 times a year we go and stay for 3 days or 4 days, and we operate there, mostly the stones and the TURP. We take the students. Student also gets the experience. We also collect the data, and then this can be used as a teaching material and publishing material. And we go about 21 people, they go. And we have amazing neglected cases we see. In 3 days, we do 57 cases. PCNL is maximum 29, 4 ureteroscopy, TURP 8, and then the remaining small things. Then around Nadiad, because we ourselves become aware of the prostate cancer because of the ultrasound, and we started doing the camp to find out how much is the BPH, what is the size of the prostate, what is the cancer, how does it look, can we do the biopsy? And at the same time, we can use our student to teach them the ultrasound, and the students are doing themselves. And then we have done so many cases, and all are treated free. Doing all this thing, you do get reward. I become a USI president with a good wishes of my colleague like Venu, and then attended all the conference, made friend. I went to almost all over the world. This is a China, this is in Munich, Chicago, Kyoto, and Japan. I was a president. Of course, our prime minister, not that time he was a chief minister, he came to Nadiad and he appreciated. And then here, when I was the SIU president, I took Nigeria as a country, and we went and trained 40 Nigerian doctors to be a urologist. And then I got a BC Roy Award from the president, St. Paul Medal from the BAUS, SIU president, World Urology president. And we have 5 people from our hospital got a BC Roy Award. Then I went to Istanbul, AUA, Taiwan, Keys Island near Iran, and then I got Lifetime Achievement Award. But the beauty was every country I was going, I was doing something, teaching them and sharing a knowledge, making a friends, and that was the most important things. And many of those people, they came to Nadiad also. I got an honorary fellowship from the American College of Surgeons. I went to South Africa, beautiful place. SIU Japan was my president year in SIU. I was president in New Orleans in WCE. I think I am the only one who is a president of 2 international and 1 national. Sigura, we did an international course in Riyadh. We did it in Doha, and it was a very fun, loving. We made lots of friends, and I went to Moscow and I did one partial nephrectomy. In Nairobi, I showed them a PCNL. In Brazil, we had lots of discussion on a stone disease. This is a Vancouver, which was a fun. Bangladesh is my most favorite, and I started going to Bangladesh since '98, and I have trained most of them in the stone. I did the first PCNL there, and I still enjoy. And that those are the wonderful doctors who have learned and then done it. And they have done on my name. They did a workshop. This is in Malaysia and Egypt. The awards you get. This is Paris, Malaysia. This is a semi-live in Heidelberg, and then we took that. And earlier this year, we did a semi-live surgery in Goa, and then many people attended. And this you cannot do without friends and family support. And this is an expert scape, which is they did a study and they found the world top institute for kidney stone. And to my surprise, we were not knowing about it. To surprise, our name is in first 10, and my name is also there in first 10 expert for the kidney stone. And that is credit or blessing of Jairam Bhai, the hard work of Snehal, Virendra Bhai and my colleague and all my staff in the hospital. And for that, we got the world recognition. At the moment, I would like to say that in every patient, I see my mother. I just cannot tolerate any complication. I want to avoid any complication. In every relative, I see myself. To give a good news or a bad news, is important. So I feel that my motto has been my mother. That whatever I have suffered, whatever happened to her, I don't think any person or any patient should do it. If possible, we can do it. So every life deserves a world-class care. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mahesh. It was a fantastic talk that you gave. I think the most important thing all the younger generation should learn and understand is the amount of hard work and application that has gone behind every step that Mahesh has done. I think, Mahesh, you have been a big ambassador for India as far as urology is concerned. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, sir.
Can I pass on to Bhaskar?
Thank you very much. As always, Mahesh, it is a real pleasure and honor to hear you speak. I come from India, and it's, again, a proud moment for me as well. Next, we have got Dr. Stefania Ferratti, again, equally established. Stefania is a very renowned endourologist in Italy and comes from University of Parma. She did her medicine in 1991 and urology in 1996. She has been an adjunct professor in the Medical School of Parma since 2000. She has done more than 20 endourology courses, more than 10 life surgery events, laparoscopic courses as a trainer. Importantly, she co-founded in 1997 the Italian Female Urologists Committee. We are talking about the female gender equality now. She was at least 25 years ahead of time at the time in 1997. She's also a member of board of directors in the Italian Endourology Association, hands-on tutor. She has been invited speaker for more than 61 national and international conferences, more than 115 papers, several book chapters, and she's also the head of the endourology and PCNL unit since 2017. Stefania, it's a real pleasure to welcome you to it, and we want to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, dear colleagues. Good evening. And for me, I'm honored to be here, especially with a very well-known big urologist as Professor Desai and so on. So I'm worried and I'm scared to come with the second after the presentation of Professor Desai, but I try to say something, of course. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for this invitation, especially from AINU committee. And I want to introduce myself. I'm Stefania Ferratti, urologist from Italy. And this time I don't want to speak about urologists. First of all, I want to introduce myself and show where I come from and where I live. In this slide, you can see my hospital, which was founded in 1915. We have one of the oldest university and medical school in the country. Our workplace can combine clinic and academic work. And I'm very lucky to work with a very good team. And with the time, we became like a big family. As you see in this slide, there is Parma. Parma, where I work, is the same city where I was born. In the region, in the north of Italy, the region is named Emilia-Romagna. And Emilia-Romagna is a very well-known area from the typical worldwide specialties. I'm sure you know the Parma ham, prosciutto crudo, or pasta barilla, Parmesan cheese, Parmigiano Reggiano. The European Food Safety Authority is located in Parma, and so my region is therefore named Food Valley. Parma was the birthplace of opera composers such as Giuseppe Verdi, and Maria Luigia of Austria, the Napoleon's wife, was our duchess. Parma in the 18th century was called the Petit Paris. This confirmed the unique Italian style. And now, what about me? I learned so much playing with boys that for some time as a child, I started to identify with them. At age of 8, I already inspired to become a doctor of animals, but at 12 years, I decided and I realized that I wanted to be a doctor of actual human being. Another part of my being is the passion for hearts that is still an important part of my current life. And from an early age, I loved working with heart and clay. I often helped mom when she removed the entrails from chicken and fish, and I love it. And my dream came true, and I was the first in my family to become a doctor. My future was to become a cardiac surgeon, and in that period, I attended the coronary unit. In fact, I graduated with a thesis on acute myocardial infarct. And so what about? Why did I become a neurologist? Urology was the first love at first sight. In 1992, I was literally hooked on this surgery when I met Martha. I immediately found urology a complete specialty, and the urology a doctor able not to dominate only the urinary system, but also the bowels, the retroperitoneum, the pelvis. And I was fascinated by the versatility of this surgery, offering from open surgery to endoscopic, to percutaneous approach, and so on. And finally, I became a neurologist in 1996, to date, of course, and began my training. As a woman, I was very lucky to find the chief who always believed in me and my abilities from the residency onwards. Thanks to this open-minded environment, I can now feel confident and prepared for major oncological surgery, endourology, laparoscopy, and pediatric stone disease. And what about, for example, another aspect during my training, I learned that sharing knowledge at every professional and human level is paramount. Knowledge is precious and should not be kept hidden. In 1997, I had the opportunity to be one of the founders of the Women's Urology Club called SIFU. This was formed of 4 female urologists with the passion and the will to help 2 young urology trainees in their professional development. The club gave a voice to a growing minority through conferences, courses, and hands-on training, and encouraged more and more female doctors to join these amazing specialties. At that time in Italy, we had a total of 80 female urologists. Today, the number is higher, three times higher. And what about other aspects? I'm sure that there is no differences between men and women in the term of skills, but there are still different opportunities. Surely surgery, and even more so urology, is a bigger challenge for a woman. I'm very lucky to have met exceptional surgeons during my journey. Meeting and conferences established a network that with the time became friendship. Learning a job also means comparing ourselves on a human level, not only on surgical technique. This is why I believe it's very important to teach young people to constantly confront each other and not be afraid to learn, even from the youngest. And what about teaching, tutoring is for me the best physical exercise. It's one of the most important professional stimulus for me. I live it as a duty as well as a pleasure. I try as I can to improve the young doctors' knowledge, sharing my experience, and I learn from them in return. Of course, there is also free time because it's not only urologist. And in my free time, I dedicated myself in fundraising, charity events, and free clinic consultation to raise awareness for oncological prevention in both men and women. Of course, there is also other behind me. There is a whole life beyond urology, and I try to make most of my free times. The quality is, the time is priceless for those like us, when most of the time is dedicated to others. Without a family and love, we are nobody. Here you can see my loves, heart, speed, family, and sports. And how can we say goodbye this evening? To conclude, I would like to leave a prescription for the young female colleagues, but is valid for all new generation of doctors. A good recipe is this one: passion and good mentor, abnegation, perseverance, dedication and daily commitment. Never doubt that you will succeed. And the last but not the least, be brave. This is my wish for the new generation of female urologists. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stefania. That was really good. I really enjoyed it. And you have shown clearly that work-life balance. And I quite like that motorbike picture of yours. So you are clearly a very keen biker as well. Thank you so much for that, Stefania. I'll pass it on to Dr. Venugopal again.
I would like to add one thing to what Stefania said. One of the most important things that she highlighted for all younger generation is knowledge should never be kept to oneself. It should not be kept hidden. It should be passed on to everyone. At whatever age, learning is always pleasure, and learning should always continue. You cannot say that you have learned everything. In India, there is a saying called Sarvatna Pida. No one climbs Sarvatna Pida. But at the same time, we try to see whether we can climb at least few steps for up the Sarvatna Pida. And that's a very important thing for all of us. But knowledge should never be hidden, and knowledge should be propagated, and it should go to appropriate places so that many younger generation will progress to much more greater heights than they have achieved so far. I think this is what I think Stefania's talk I understood from, but apart from his extracurricular activities, which was good as a change. Now, may I request, I'd like to introduce my good well-wisher, Dr. Mallikarjuna. I call him Mallix. I know him from his student days as a trainee urologist. I don't know whether he remembers it, but I remember it. There was a usual gossip among ourselves in my company, that Mallix used to imitate me when he climbs on the stage. I don't know how far it is true, but that's what they say. I always had a habit of going to the stage, almost running, and I used to rub my hair on the back of my head before I start my talk. And I believe Malik was doing the same thing at some time in his life. Today, of course, hairs have disappeared. That's the only thing that I can see change in him as far as Malik is concerned. He finished his training and joined Yashoda Hospital, I think, in Hyderabad, where he developed a very good department and started the dependent program there before he migrated to the present center of Asian Institute of Urology. He is our president-elect, a dynamic personality, a teacher, a hardcore teacher. I think if you look at his workshops that he conducts and the way he teaches everyone the nuances of the various surgeries that he undertakes. And I had the privilege and occasion to visit his workshops time and again in Hyderabad. And I'm very, very happy to see his progress over the years that has followed. As a president-elect and going to the president soon, in January hopefully, I'm sure that he will take urology to the next height as far as India is concerned, because he has got a wealth of, what should I say, wealth of not only knowledge, but he has got an ability to interact with everyone and get everyone on the same platform as he is. And he will take urology to a greater height. With this, may I present Mallikarjuna? Ali. Can you?
Mallikarjuna sir, you're muted.
Yes. I'm audible, I appreciate. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for I don't know, if you say that I'm almost like you, that itself is enough for me. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, Bhaskar and Jishan, for considering me to be one of them between the 2 grades or 3 grades around me. I was a little perturbed when I needed to speak on that. But, well, Jishan asked me to talk on training in laparoscopy, which is very close to my heart. I said I could not say refuse to him, saying that I will talk on that, no problem at all. So it's greetings from my institute and Hyderabad, the city where I live. And let's go. Let's on this occasion, we're remembering Mahatma. I think this is the best saying of Mahatma. It is health that is real wealth and not pieces of gold and silver. I think everyone in the world today accepts it to the core, especially after the COVID, which has come and troubled us completely. Coming to my talk, that is taking laparoscopic surgery to a next level. That is, training needs no boundaries. This was the Jishan's idea. I think I suit for it. That's the reason why he asked me to do that. Let me look into how I looked at it. Well, these are all the types of instruments, say, well back 1,000 years ago down to what we have today. And that is the reason why there's so much of training which was necessary. We no longer use these instruments on the left side of the screen, and we ultimately ended up in using these 2 sort of instruments for our patients nowadays. And that is the reason why this metamorphosis or change required training which was constant, and updating which was necessarily to be constant. And the reason most being the laparoscopy, not recently, but at least 10 to 20 years switch into practice, and many surgeons needed to do it, not updating themselves. They needed to do it because that was the demand and necessity which was driven. What is that next level? We all talk about, I still remember 15 years ago when there was a workshop, a lap nephrectomy done. It was fantastic. I went to Singapore on an ELSA meeting. There was no separate laparoscopic urology workshop. ELSA meeting done in Singapore in 1995, where Malcolm Copcoat and Dr. D.D. Gar both did a radical nephrectomy and a simple nephrectomy in a workshop. And we said that's an ultimate surgery that has gone. 25 years down the lane, we are doing a simple a renal vein thrombus with an IVC extension, with placing a Satinsky and completely managing laparoscopy. Do you think that this is the next level we had to achieve, or this is what we mean that what is next level is concerned? This is technically difficult. Anybody who gets experienced can do it. Anybody who has got a better equipment can do it. Anybody who gets trained can do it, definitely. The last part is most important. Let anybody who gets trained can do it. But do you think that this is the next level? Well, I don't think so. I don't think so that this is the next level what anybody should achieve on, or what you mean by next level. We need to look at in a something different fashion. What is that? This is a routine. This is a routine thing. What happens in being an expert? We all start with a novice when we start MBBS and probably become competent when we become a resident. And this is the training program which goes on for the next 2 decades or probably a decade or more. And then we start residency, become a senior resident, and then proficient. And over a period of time, 5 to 10 years down as a consultant, you become experts. Can you ever believe yourself that you're an expert? I don't think it is possible, because you are doing a similar job by institution, but that's all, nothing more, because you've been doing the same job all these days, and it is an institution. Like Roger Federer plays a shot, it is a nice shot all the time, because he does it by free hand, he has to do it, and it is no way it becomes wrong. Most of the time, 99% of the times, it is a correct shot. So it is an institution. But after being an expert, what more? You've become an expert at the age of 40 or 45 or 50 years. What next after being an expert? What you need, create more experts. That is my contention. You need to clone. You can't clone yourself. You can't create a similar sort of a structure. So you need to create structures similar to you at least, or in your belief, what can be useful to this society and how this science can progress and better over a period of time. So after being an expert, what you need to do is create more like you as much as possible. If not like you, and they automatically metamorphose. If they are good, better than you probably, which will give you more and more respect and satisfaction, like Dr. Mahesh was talking about just now, which he takes that pride in saying, I've created so many people and I've trained so many people and happy they're extremely doing well, much better than me. That is the pride he's taking in, and what gives him the satisfaction I could see in his eyes just a moment ago. What? They taught me how. These are the 3 gentlemen who are extremely important to me in my life. I've never lived with them except this first gentleman who's called Dr. S. Vaidyanathan. He's working with NHS in Southwood. Bhaskar, you might be knowing, he's working in a spinal cord injury center there. A man who trained me how to learn urology. He didn't teach urology. He trained me how to learn urology in a urological way. So that was his greatness. There are many teachers who teach urology, but this man taught me how to learn urology. And that was my primary 2 years exposure to this man. And that is my foundation forever in my life. That is a foundation which I always miss, based on that foundation today, if somebody is talking about reconstructive surgery, I will say, tell me one procedure which is good, which will not use a stent, and your decision of that procedure is going to be good. We talk about stents being placed left, right, and center. If you talk about not placing a stent and asking and giving an answer, it is going to be correct in reconstructive urology. The second gentleman is, you all know, he just spoke, Dr. Mahesh Desai. From him, I imbibed. I never lived with him. I never stayed with him. I was never a student of him, but I am an ekalave of him. That is virtual learning, which happened for the last 20, 25 years from him to practice urology. You learned urology. How you can practice urology. That is one thing which he taught me probably virtually past 10 to 15 years. And at one point of time, if we can become 10% of him or 50% of him, it's the greatest thing that we can achieve. That was our motto at that point of time. And the last gentleman is Dr. Nagesh Reddy. He's a gastroenterologist. He's not a urologist at all. He's one of the world-renowned gastroenterologists and who's close to me past 25 years since the day I landed in my city to start my urological practice. And he has been a mentor, philosopher, and a guide in many, 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 many aspects. And he's the man who taught me. He could never teach urology to me, but to think beyond urology. And these are the 3 things which revolve around in my life. We're talking about training. This was a little part of how could I got trained, but training. We all look for training and many people join us, and to whom we train and how to train, we are not clear about. But what I feel is all the most important thing is look at the passion in the person who looks at rather than the purpose, which is most of the time overloaded in the present generation. I need to look at the passion in the individual to learn and to excel in a zeal more than the purpose of getting. So make them realize the time and volume needed for taking that time. Not everyone is same in every field, but assess the skill quotient and make them realize the time and volume needed, and so that they can be patient and achieving what they wanted to achieve. Why it is becoming difficult nowadays? Majority of the guys are going to be carried away by technology and commercial values, including me. When all technology came into market, I was carried away by technology. But it needs to be understood that years of struggle to learn cannot be transferred in a short period of training program. So it is a constant process of learning, what Dr. Venugopal was talking about. The learning is never ending. Unless you be there with that zeal and passion, you can never, ever excel. And any motto, any teacher will think always that his student should excel all the time. I don't know how come it will be possible. Mahesh bhai could make it, but it is difficult and it's not an easy endeavor to make everybody excel. So when I'm looking at laparoscopy and training in laparoscopy, first thing I always insist on telling the people is, you should understand, try to understand the limitations of laparoscopy. Majority of the times, the trainees will end up in learning them by doing a mistake, not understanding them properly. Majority of the times, if any observer comes, he'll be more interested in what is happening on the screen and looking at the screen, what is happening and how it is being done, rather than the rest of the physics which happen all around the body, all around the body of the patient and outside the body of the patient. So you should understand the limitations, maintain them, understand the limitations. I'm not going to talk about the subject. For simple precision, like a gesture imprecision that can happen in a large size trocar with a smaller size instrument. How many of them are taught about it at the point of their start of training, so that it minds? See, majority of the times, if this is not done in the residency, 10 years down the lane or 20 years down the lane, if they want to turn away and do the other way around, it will be very, very difficult. So the best way the foundation happens is the initial part, where they have to be told about the true limitations and how do they overcome about those limitations. How it took 10 to 12 years for me to understand how the best way to do. Why? In spite of 20 years of laparoscopy training, which is happening all over the world, still I see majority of the centers, there is not an ergonomic place or ergonomic place of work which is happening in majority of the centers. They still struggle with a bad ergonomics. It is not, is it foolish or not? That means the emphasis was not happening on how to do it. That is what is happening. And majority of the times we end up in having a learning against astronauts. You see, this is a picture of a photograph in a workshop. In a workshop, you can understand the way that the monitor is being kept and the way you're operating, your shoulders are up, your hands are up, everything. So you learn against all the odds and sacrifices of economic sacrifices, time sacrifices, everything. You should be prepared for it. But if these three things can be curtailed by a proper training in front or up front, it is going to be making a lot of difference to the younger generation to come. They don't need to spend 10 to 15 years like you have spent. If you have spent 15 years, doesn't mean that he has to spend 15 years to learn the same thing what you have learned. It's not necessary. Second thing is conceptual differences. The technology has impressed on this younger generation in such a fashion that if you do something laparoscopically, whatever you do, it is correct. Or if you do it robotically, whatever you do is correct. It is not. I decry this article which was published by my favorite laparoscopic surgeon, Gunther Janecek, in 2000, where he said a finger spiloplasty will work well if it done laparoscopically. When it could not do well in open surgery, how can it do it well in laparoscopic surgery? It's atrocious. You can't even believe it. So let us not get into carried away by this sort of a thought process when you start doing it in a different perspective or in a different technology. So don't believe. Let the people start realizing this doesn't work out in this fashion. Our whole process was on simplifying laparoscopy. If at all, if I remember to a certain extent by majority of my people or my friends, it's because of simplifying laparoscopy. Because is it difficult? It was projected to be very difficult because it's very nice. The reason being, it was never standardized. There was no traditional way of working which was being expressed. Everybody expressed their own way of doing it on a book which could never be read by people and which could never be imagined by the people. Some videos, some sort of a videos and some sort of a tapes which were seen, they're done by in a different side, so there is no standardization. So most important thing in laparoscopy to make it simple is there should be if you do something, it should be reproducible. You devise a technique which is reproducible by everybody will appreciate, and it will be the norm of the day. It should be a safe and reproducible. These are the two things which make a technique which is going to be reproducible. This is what has happened when we did this two-window technique. We made a simple thing. You make two windows and your pedicle is completely exposed now, you can dissect into the pedicle. Even if you have an accidental injury to a vein or an artery, you can clamp onto the vein with your left hand grasper and it will get controlled. This is a simple way of telling. This is no invention. There's a simple, innovative way of doing it, which made a lot of difference to many, many, many people. And many people have acknowledged that it made their life simpler. So simplifying laparoscopy is the only thing possibly which will be necessary, which is necessary for Indian population at any cost, because laparoscopy is going to be the most important thing. So this article had fantastic reviews on this regard. So second thing, how to make it simple. Is it the way to demonstrate all the time? No two anatomies are same. So how can it be similar? So teach anatomy. My motto is the guy should know the anatomy through a laparoscopic eye. What he read anatomy, what he dissected at that time is different, and what he's seeing through on a laparoscopic eye is different. So let him see as much as normal anatomy through the laparoscopic eye. This is a hilar dissection happening for a hilar, anterior hilar tumor. You see the calyces, arteries, veins below it, and you can see the anatomy. So let them understand the anatomy properly. If you make them understand the anatomy, second being understand the pathology. Pathology will decide. If you know the pathology well, I always suggested, there was simple telegram by one message by name Dr. Himanshu from Jodhpur saying, sir, you suggested some pathology book once upon a time. What is that book? It is nothing but William Boyd, where macropathology, texture of the tissue, etc. was well explained in that book. And that will teach you, in absence of a human touch there, you know where to, how it is going to cut and what tissues are going to require and how much stiffness it will be there and how easy or how difficult it is going to be cut. If you teach these two things, it is very simplified. You don't need to tell anybody what he needs to do. It is already done because basic fundamental is completely intact, and that will be making an ordinary surgeon also make an extraordinary surgery on demonstration. So make them learn the anatomy and the pathology well. Using technology. It's a very common question asked by me, sir, which thing you use, harmonic or this Xyrus or something extra, NCL, etc., etc. You don't need technology if you know anatomy. You need to know the pathology, what sort of a tissue you see, what will be the vascularity of that tissues which will be there, whether they require any energy at all or not, you'll be able to understand once you know the anatomy and pathology very well. So there is no need for a heavy technology as and when it is necessary. Every time it is not necessary. It's a beautiful adrenalectomy with a simple monopolar scissor which is being done, which doesn't need any energy at all because there is hardly any vessels there which is troubling you. What all you need is knowing the planes, dissecting into the planes and understanding what else you may require. A smaller vessel may require a clip and a much smaller vessel may need only a diathermy. Nothing more might be necessary. So understanding what you are doing is going to be the most important thing, and what is the texture of the tissue and what is the nature of tissue, what you are getting across is the most important thing, and understanding the planes is the most important thing in knowing it. So it is not the question of knowing the anatomy, it is exploiting the anatomy which is necessary. Exploit the anatomy, don't explore. A person who doesn't know anatomy will explore the tissues. A person who knows the anatomy will exploit the anatomical structures for his benefit. So know the anatomy well and exploit the anatomical structures so that you can show a beautiful anatomy there. The moment you do a good anatomical dissection, your results are going to be excellent without any doubt. So exploit, but not explore the anatomy. Think out of the box. Not what you've been taught 50 years ago doesn't necessarily to be the truth all the time. You started looking through a laparoscopic eye, so think out of the box. This is one of the transfers taught me done for a VVF closure which we devised. It was by accident. Sometime we entered into the vagina and started looking into the fistula through the vagina very well. It was looking very well and we succeeded in it. We are not very confident in entering into the vagina every time, and there's no point into it, that too antegrately. So in which case, what we did is we started looking into dividing into this bladder, which we are very familiar with, and we started dissecting into the bladder, especially for supratrigonal fistula, which makes your life easier. After this technique, it's got very popular, and I think 90% of the VVF's repair, which is happening, majority of the people now, young laparoscopic surgeons are doing this transverse cystotomy for all these supratrigonal fistulas. So simplifying thing is to the situation, not necessarily to the anatomy, by situation also it is going to be very important. The third point which I want to say regarding training is learning suturing. One of the most important things in any laparoscopic surgery is suturing. One point which was never written in a book and which is going to be very evident is every laparoscopic surgery has got two movements. One is intuitive, another is counterintuitive. Intuitive are the things which go inside and rotate. These are the only intuitive movements. Whereas counterintuitive are up and down and sidewards. There are counterintuitive movements. The more intuitive movements you have, the faster is going to be the surgery. You see the surgery on the right side in the screen. They are all, your hands are not hardly moving. They are all intuitive movements are dominating the counterintuitive movements. So whenever you train yourself, you need to position yourself, place the ports, and the way you plan it, you should do it in such a fashion that you use more intuitive movements for a faster work rather than a counterintuitive movements. So this fundamental thing should be practiced on the lab, on the dry lab itself, so that you start using it in that fashion when you are in vivo, when you start doing it on the table. So counterintuitive versus intuitive movements. Everyone teaches you in this world. I tell you, I learned this from one of the staff nurses who was working with one of the renowned laparoscopic surgeons, Dr. Palnivelu in South India. Where is he? What happened? We used to roll the bag like this and push it through the trocar. There was a small technique. There was a frill which was happened. They frill it and then push the trocar. It goes in very easily. Once it goes into the abdomen, this remains in this fashion. You take an effort to open it and open the bag again. This gets opened automatically. So it's such a simple job, a simple thing, an innovative thinking which makes it. So everyone around you, including a ward boy in the laparoscopic theater working, will teach you something more than what is there. So imagination is more important than the knowledge alone. You need to have a great team behind you to support you to learn laparoscopy, to practice laparoscopy, and to teach. I said 3 steps. To learn, I had an initial part of my career with these gentlemen who made me learn laparoscopy, and they had the patience to hold the camera and me excelling it. And we had next generation of people who excelled in writing up whatever we have been doing, and then we published some data. And we have got excellent new generation who came as an observer and thought that that is something good for a newcomer, which was we doing it routinely. And as soon as we did that 2-window technique, and you need to understand, pay respect to those guys, those staff who have been patient with you, and without them, you'll not be able to do a fantastic surgery today. It's an intuitive work which happens there. And most important point in training, which I felt is the Pygmalion effect. That is, people are influenced by the expectations built upon them. My teacher said, I'll pass. My trainer said, my boss said, my mentor said, I'll be able to do a laparoscopic surgery. I should be able to do. So when we expect certain behaviors of the others, and we are likely to act in the ways that make the expected behavior more likely to occur. And this is one of the wonderful things. So a trainee to be encouraged. At the same time, you need to assess whether it is capable or not, and try to encourage at one point and make him do the other point, and that will be the end of a good result. So beyond boundaries, training about beyond boundaries. I would say there is nothing like training beyond boundaries. It is learning beyond boundaries. Nothing, everything is, learning has got no boundaries. This is somewhere in a remote corner of India, and this is somewhere in the remote one part of China. So there is nothing like, I learned something there, I learned something here, I taught something there, what I had, I taught something, what I had here. So at the same time, I learned something back and came back. So it is always a learning beyond boundaries to me. What I felt as a next level, what I didn't agree last time was, this is it. You got a WhatsApp from a trainee of yours and say that, sir, I copied your 2-window technique and I did 2 lap nephrectomies with more confidence. And somebody from Bangladesh said, I reproduced your technique and I could get a good result. This is what is getting into the next level. I want that laparoscopy to get into that next level. For that, make it easier, simple, reproducible. And for that, you require strong fundamentals, good clinician, learner for life. Don't let skills die. Look at the passion than the money. It is what is inside you counts than what you do. And the real truth, which majority of us don't accept, is you should be able to read and write. You may not be able to read and write, but you should be able to learn, unlearn, and relearn. If you can't do this, I don't think laparoscopy is going to be easy for you. I would always quote this state, and this was quoted. In fact, I took from Mahesh, Dr. Desai's chapter one day, and this was quoted. And this is another part of my story, which started somewhere around 8 to 9 years ago, where we started by Nagesh Reddy's advice. I would say, if you want to excel, and this all started because I, being a laparoscopy trainer at many places, and my institution where I was working before never believed in even buying a high definition camera. So frustration, we thought we start our own institute, and that was the beginning of that institute. And that but the whole basis of that institute is the people who are working with you are partners in work and also into the profit. So the team members who are going to be core are going to be partners in work and profit. And I see this proud privilege of having the two greats and my mentors, they being there on that day for the inauguration. And Team AINU is grateful for all the efforts, for everybody, everywhere in the world, for giving this so much of a goodwill and good amount of feedbacks everywhere. And we have been certified as one of the world's best hospitals in this specialty in the recent Newsweek learning. And this learning continues to be there in our own auditorium. And this was Traxer who was the first one to come to this place. I am thankful to the support by everyone, wherein there's so much of big meetings we have held. Many people attended in large numbers, and we had an excellent get to learning and teaching processes happening at the same point of time. And this will never happen. And this was never my contribution. This is all the contribution of so many of my members of my team who contribute. And that is the team. And it's a team AINU which was successful rather than myself. I don't think I would have been what I am today had I had not had this team, which was starting here. And now it is like this at that point of time. As more partners added, we had more centers added to us. This was our main branch which started, and these are the next branches, and this is up to next month, where they're all independent uronephro units managed and partnered by the same urologists themselves, and they manage themselves their institutions. I thank for everything for my family, my wife, who's there in UK, Sumani. My daughter delivered recently, so she is there in UK. My son, who's a surgeon and is a bariatric surgeon in US. I think probably they sacrificed majority of that time for myself, for me to be what I am today. Thank you very much.
Can you hear the clapping, Mary?
Sir, thank you, sir.
Thank you. It's a fantastic talk.
Thank you,
I
sir.
think beyond words, words fail me how to say thank you for it.
No, sir,
One of the most important things that you mentioned was the economics of laparoscopic surgery. And I've heard you talk about this on more than one occasion. And I've been totally impressed. In fact, I did remember asking you to write up about it and give it to me for putting it in my Euro education program. Somehow you have not done it so far. I'm just reminding you once again. Another thing that is important is you have a team of excellent bunch of youngsters. And this is something I want all youngsters in the country, all youngsters listening to this program, understand. It is the youngsters who will make the chief look taller than he is if they work sincerely and effectively. I think all efforts must be given to encourage the youngsters to come up well and groom them properly so that they will become the byproducts, not byproducts, the products of tomorrow. And the country can rest on the laurels they bring to you. I think Malli, you have done an excellent job. And one thing that I can tell you is that I'm sure probably in a few years' time, you may surpass MPUH at Nadiad. I'm sure Mahesh may not like it very much. With that, I think I'll now ask another good friend of mine, Sanjay, to talk about his topic before he starts. I think Sanjay Kulkarni has become a household name as far as India is concerned, and probably the world is concerned, for his dedicated work in the field of structural ultra. I don't think many take up structural ultra as the life mission and to treat patients in such large numbers. During my student days, I think structural ultra was one condition where even the urologists did not like very much of dabbling in that, because we felt the results are poor, and dilatation, day in and day out, was a way to go forward as structural ultra is concerned. Even at Manipal, when I started my department, I had a lot of difficulty in doing certain complex uroplasties, though, like what Malli said, attempting and doing it over and over again, you'll start getting some more sort of perfection as far as that's concerned. Here's a man who has devoted his entire lifetime to the field of structural ulcer, and he has got a technique which goes by his name, Sanjay's Kulkarni technique of urethroplasty. I think if you look at the amount of workshops he has conducted and participated, and the way he demonstrates the various techniques that he has got up his sleeve, I think there's nobody else who can do a post-urethroplasty or a post-urethral stricture surgery as best as Sanjay Kulkarni is concerned. I think the most important thing is he demonstrates every step of it with a clear-cut idea of what exactly we demonstrated. He has got a way of explaining. He'll take a glove or glove paper and draw on the glove paper and show us how exactly that particular step is going to be. I think Sanjay has done a remarkable job. He is now the president of SIU International, and believe me, SIU was the first international organization to start in the whole world, much more earlier than AIU started. I think Sanjay Kulkarni deserves all kudos for establishing himself as a top-class surgeon in the field of reconstructive urology and especially structural ulcer. Over to Sanjay Kulkarni. Thank you. Sanjay, all yours.
Thank you, Professor Venugopal. I will share my screen with you. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'll just go back. Yeah. After the fantastic talks of Professor Mahesh Desai, my guru, I want to tell my friends that whenever we go abroad and we say that we are from India, they always know Professor Mahesh Desai. And I want to tell that we, the next generation urologists in India, are standing tall on the broad shoulders of Professor Mahesh Desai. That's his contribution around the world. About 20, 30 years ago, when we started going abroad, we were afraid to ask questions. And now we are respected as experts. And Mallikarjuna and Stefania also give fantastic talks. Thank you very much. Bhaskar, I know about you very well and how respected you are in England. Thank you for inviting me. So my topic today is about popularizing urethral surgery worldwide, setting standards and learning and leading example. So urethral stricture is known to mankind for 5,000 years. And these are the various steps which are known that urethrotomy was popular for 1,500 years. The first documented urethroplasty was by Hamilton Russell about 100 years ago. Then Johansson's two-stage urethroplasty was very popular. Then came Orandi flap, and then buccal mucosa became a standard of care since 1996. When I was a surgery resident in 1977 to 79, we used to have a dilatation clinic at the end of a theater list, and patients were operated by junior resident, and we were doing dilatation in minor OT and local anesthesia. The problem was pain, fever, and bleeding. And at that time, my boss, Professor Subhash Patki, was learning TURP. So I said, if my boss is learning TURP, I must become a urologist. That's how my career started. So after finishing my residency in surgery, I moved to UK because that was a trend at the time. And I was in the Institute of Urology, London for 1 month. And then it was a total period of 5 years of urology training in UK. In the last year, I got a chance to assist what we call father of urethroplasty, Richard Turner Warwick, who passed away on 20th of September, only about 10 days ago. And he was 95. And he was one of the best surgeons I have ever assisted. And I was his first assistant for about a year. And that was my introduction to urethroplasty. I came back to India on 1st of January 1987 with my wife. And initially, I was doing a lot of transpubic urethroplasties, and Johansson's two-stage was popular everywhere. So my friend, Dr. Guido Barbagli, introduced the dorsal onlay technique in 1996, and I started it for the first time in India in 1997, and the results were really very good, excellent results. So what I did, I applied the same technique which Guido applied for bulbar. I applied it to penile urethra, and initially I was mobilizing the urethra circumferentially, the penile and the bulbar urethra, and applying 2 grafts. And this I was doing through a perineal incision. And that I published as a video in year 2000 in EAU and AUA, and people thought that this is a little too aggressive. It was not acceptable. So about 10 years later, we devised this technique of one-side dissection dorsal onlay technique, and that was picked up by the world very quickly. So it takes long for our peers to accept that this is a new technique. I'm really fortunate that Hinman's Atlas of Urologic Surgery has a chapter on Kulkarni technique. I think to achieve this kind of, what you can say, in your lifetime is a rare event. In 2002, we conducted the high-tech urology group GRS workshop where Professor Mandi, Barbagli, George Webster, Jerry Jordan all came, and that was a turning point in the workshops for urethroplasty. And Guido Barbagli from Italy is my mentor, and I just want to tell my friends that even Sachin Tendulkar and Roger Federer, they need a mentor, even if they are the best in the world. So Guido asked me one day, Sanjay, what is your interest? And I said, urethroplasty and laparoscopy. All of you know that my wife was the second surgeon in India to do laparoscopy cholecystectomy, and we started that in 1990, and we started India's first animal lab in 1991-92, and we trained hundreds of surgeons. So Guido said, Sanjay, forget about laparoscopy and concentrate on urethroplasty. This was the very important advice that I gave him long time ago. And most important, I gave up laparoscopy and concentrated on urethroplasty. My friend Alan Morey says that urethral stricture is an open surgical disease. And now we want to do 2 kinds of urethroplasties. For trauma, we want to do anastomosis. And for longer stricture, we want to do augmentation. So what has happened? There are 3 important people after the what you call the current generation of reconstructive urologists: Professor Tony Mandi, Guido Barbagli. Along with them, what we did is that we changed the urethral reconstruction algorithm. We turned complex urethral surgery into simple. We transect the bulbar urethra only when there is history of trauma, and we gave up genital skin flaps for buccal mucosa, and we use genital skin flaps now very rarely for very complex cases. And most of the patients from 2-stage to single stage, and we introduce what we call minimally invasive urethroplasty. This is the Barbagli technique, one-side dissection, non-transection bulbar urethroplasty. So we really simplified the algorithm. Then in 2006, I started the Kulkarni School of Urethral Surgery. What is important is that 8 to 10 urologists came inside the theater, and we had a large screen and a 4K camera on my right shoulder. And we did about 6 to 8 urethroplasties in 2 days. Most important, the course is free. We don't take any financial commitment from our attendees. So we talk about stricture assessment, doing properly RGU MCU. The treatment algorithm is simplified. They watch live surgery inside the theater. We discuss what are the alternatives, why am I doing this. They watch the intraoperative technical skills, and we have standardized post-operative pathways. So this was taught to many urologists. This is one of our first workshops, and the man in the blue here is a very famous urethroplasty surgeon in America now, Dmitry Niklowski, and he is an inventor. So once we started doing this, we started getting invitations to conduct live surgery workshops, and I have traveled around the country, and almost all major hospitals I have demonstrated urethroplasty live surgery workshops. Ours then became an academic unit because we had large volume of patients. We now do about 500 urethroplasties per year, and except for China, we are the largest volume center in the world. We are experienced teachers, training, discuss, observe, assist. This goes on continuously. We have a lot of publications. We conduct live surgery workshops. And now with Corona, we have live surgery webcasts around the world. And we have WhatsApp group discussion so that if somebody has a difficult case, he can put it on a WhatsApp group and then we can discuss. So we had a lot of visitors coming to Pune. And this is a paper published by my friends from Indonesia. We should know that Indonesia is the fourth most populous country in the world after China, India, and America, Indonesia. And this is Adi Kunchoro and Paksi. And what they published in this paper saying that up to 2012, the success rate of urethroplasty was 64%. And they came to India only for 3 months in January 13. And after that, they went home and the success rate jumped from 64% to 89%. This is only 3 months training. And now today, if an Indonesian patient is getting a better treatment for urethral stricture disease, the credit goes to India and especially to Pune. So there are many organizations. This is GORS, Society of Genital Urinary Reconstructive Surgeons. I was the president in 2014, and they have urethroplasty training fellowships. Most of them are in USA. In Europe, there is only one in London. So for the rest of the world, I think if you don't have the American qualification like USMLE on other examinations, you can't go and touch a patient in America. I'm not saying they come and do surgery here, but the rest of the world can come to Pune and learn urethroplasty. And that's what is actually happening for a long period of time. So we had international urologists from all over the world coming to Pune, depending upon if it's an experienced urologist, he will stay for a month. If it's a junior guy, he may stay for 3 months, and the fellows stay for about 1 year. And we have fellows coming from all around the world. So slowly, what we thought is that GORS was mainly an academic organization, and we were conducting a lot of live surgery workshops, which were essential in the developing world, where most of the population lives. So we started Tony Mandi, Guido Barbagli, and we started this International Society of Reconstructive Urology, and then we conduct live surgery workshops around the world. Over a period of time, Guido and me, we wrote this small book, which cost $10 on art of urethral reconstruction. It's full of only photographs, how to do surgery. There are not a lot, because a busy urologist is not willing to read a textbook. The textbook is in the center, published by Springer. This is Francisco Martins and Tobias Kohler, my co-editors, and this is now currently the most important textbook of GU reconstruction. And we also published an article in what we call the Urology Clinics of America. To have this all journey, you must have a life partner in life and partner in surgery. Josna, I always credit her being a surgeon, that she has a role of assisting me and criticizing me, what we call constructive criticism, to make me a better surgeon. So I just want to pay what you can say, thank you to these two gentlemen here. One is Professor Mahesh Desai for starting and making this MPUH, a world famous institute, and my friend Mallikarjuna for starting this Asian Urology Institute. And on his left, you can see my associate, Dr. Pankaj Joshi. I want to tell you that I have traveled to more than 40 countries to demonstrate urethroplasty. And Pankaj has been, at the age of 42, he has traveled to 18 countries demonstrating urethroplasty. And today, Pankaj Joshi, my associate, is considered the most important reconstructive urologist of the new generation. I just want to tell my friends that this is chance for an Indian urologist to become a world leader. Because we have a large population, we are all intelligent and skilled urologists. And most important, the technology gap is now narrow or maybe minimal. If we subspecialize, if we dedicate what Mallikarjuna has done, we start inventing, and then we either publish or we perish. So what our next step is, we start this new institute called Kulkarni Neurosurgery Institute. And the most important factor here is that we have dissociated patient care from finances. A patient comes from far off place, and we will ask him how much money he has, how much money he needs to go back. We'll give him double the amount, and whatever money he gives us, we will do surgery next day. So this institute will be ready even next year. And we already have 6 urologists. This is a 100-bed urology institute with 5 operating rooms. They asked me, Sanjay, at the age of 67, why are you building a hospital? So in Marathi, there is a saying that I'm planting a mango tree. Who will eat mangoes? I don't know. You keep on doing your job. I just want to tell my friends, I never opened up to my friends till today, that I came back from England after learning kidney transplant in Royal Free Hospital, London. When I came back, there were a lot of unrelated transplants happening in India. And then there was a BBC documentary about kidney prostitution happening in India. So I felt really sorry. So I did not want to go against a lot of hospitals and a lot of urologists doing unrelated transplants. So a guy called Shahjilal Tambodi came to me. He was a social worker. And he said, Sanjay, give me some job to do. I'm retired. So I told him, what is the true situation? That we need an organ transplant, cadaver transplant program should happen, and we need to pass the law from heart stoppage to brain dead criteria. And then, so I remained at the background. This is very important. And then every week he came and met me. So I told him, go and meet Dr. Kirpekar, go and meet Dr. Faravadia, go and meet this guy in Mumbai, go and meet this guy in Delhi. And then he used to go and do that. And from 1987 to 1994, it took us about 6-7 years to get the Organ Transplant Act passed by the government of India. And I just want to tell you, the act was started, the original act was started in Pune, and we should take the credit for passing the Cadaver Organ Transplant Act in 1994. So this is a long journey, and thank you for listening to the story. So we made urethroplasty from complex to simple, traveled around the world, published a lot of papers, videos, workshops, and wherever you go, you can find that urethroplasty surgeons outside America are usually trained in Pune. And Raju Thomas met me recently, the president-elect of AUA. He told me, Sanjay, you are Mr. Urethra in America. I think that's a little contribution. So thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. It's a very exhilarating talk that you gave. And I think most of the youngsters must remember the hardship, the way he has dedicated himself to one field. Even in India, I think there is no more place for a generalist urologist. When we were all in training and practicing urology, it was all general urology. Today, subspecialization has come into a big way, and definitely the subspecialization is going to be with us for eternity. I think what all of you youngsters must remember is, instead of being generalist, I think you can be a generalist, but specialize in one area at least, so that you can improve your practice and do much more good work as far as your patients are concerned. If you are going to remain as a generalist, maybe you will be a backbencher in few years to come. I think, Sanjay, you have shown all of us how dedication and sincerity will take you a long way, even if you take a subspecialization in a small area called structural ultra. I know structural is not a small area, it's 25 centimeters as our male is concerned, but then it's a small area as our body is concerned. And to specialize in one area and to become so good in that area, itself speaks volume about what you achieved. And I think you must be, your example should be followed by many, many of the younger generation, as you rightly said. Thank you, Sanjay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Again, I think from all three speakers, Dr. Mahesh, Dr. Mallikarjuna, Dr. Sanjay, one thing is very clear. There's a saying, when life gives you lemons make lemonade. You know, things will not be perfect. You will have to make the best of what it gives you, and then you come out at the top. So, you know, urethral surgery may not have been very sexy at the time, but today it is, and you have made a lemonade out of lemons you had. So it is a pleasure. And I believe in that philosophy completely. And a part of my journey coming to UK from India was not always very easy, but whatever came my way. And I believe every opportunity you get, if you make use of it, of course, you need to have a team of good friends, good teachers, good mentors. But yeah, that's the way to progress. So what we'll do next is, and Stefania, again, I'll start with you. I really enjoyed your talk. The work-life balance is very important. I'll start the question round with you. I think if I was to say, you were ahead of time regarding the gender representation, and as a founder member of the Italian Female Urology Club. I mean, we are talking about, if you'll follow Twitter, about gender representation, etc. now, today. And I know in some countries, probably including India, there is not a lot of females in urology. Tell me what prompted you to start that? What prompted you 25 years ago to start? What we're still sometimes finding it difficult?
Yes, in fact, it's a very long time ago. I immediately believed in the project, and I was proud of it. I was the secretary of this club, and I felt pushed by a positive force. I wanted to do something of cosmetry for my gender. And I remember my chief always say to me, remember, Stefania, that a woman's worst enemy is a woman. But I wanted to make a difference in some way.
And you certainly have. You certainly have. So tell me something. And you mentioned that briefly in your talk. I know there are 3 times more female urologists now in Italy than it was at the time, which itself is a very good thing. Tell me what we can learn. How can other countries learn and maybe adopt their systems to encourage females in urology?
In the last 20 years, women have been acquiring more and more awareness and skill in all sectors. Today, about the 60% of students in medical school are women. However, only few women decide to become a surgeon. And so this is probably the next future. I have never thought I could be an inspiration for young female colleagues, but my example and passion for work always inspire them.
And I'll tell you what is very beautiful is sometimes showing them that there is a work-life balance. And you showed in some of the pictures, you enjoy art, there's a work-life balance. And I think if they can realize you can be a urologist, endourologist, or any other field or any surgical field, and yet have that work-life balance. And the last question for you, Stefania, I mean, you are quite heavily involved in education and training. And we have got a lot of other trainers, and I'm sure they'll be grilled next. But what is it that you enjoy about being the trainer most?
Certainly, when I have a concrete feedback, colleagues who call me and say, oh, you are right, the supine position is perfect and it's fantastic. Or when they tell me they have practiced tips and tricks that I say to him. But the best for me is, I think, is when the pupil has surpassed the master. Then it means that I did a really good job. I think so.
Great, I agree. I mean, as a trainer, it's nothing best than seeing your trainee do as well or do better than you. Thank you, Stefania. Before I give it to Dr. Venugopal, can I just say to all the viewers who are logged in, if you want a certificate, we need a feedback from you. We should have a feedback form anyway, but you know, if you do the online feedback form, you will be given the certificates as well. And I'll thank our sponsors at this stage before I pass the baton on to Sun Pharma, to Vivek, to Medisage, and to Sudesh. Thank you so much for your help and support, and to all the speakers and audience. Dr. Venugopal, over to you.
Thank you, Bhaskar. I think most important thing as far as India is concerned is one, as I told, subsidization is becoming a reality. And second thing is, even today, majority of the Indian urologists are practicing either solo or in a group, with very little people, very few people coming in a way that they are going to coming in a way of becoming specialized as a subspecialization is concerned. I think the most important thing that we should realize is, with all the turnover that's occurring, with all the advances that's occurring, Is it time that we have to think in terms of, with subsidy coming to force, is it necessary for us to change the way we train present generation, next generation of urologists? Should more time be devoted to subspecialty training during the period they are with you as a trainer? The second question that I am putting forward to all of you, these questions are common, are all of you, should the period of training extended to more than 3 years with such an influx of subspecialties? I didn't think it over because it's something very important. And the third one that I would like to place before you is, can we do away with general surgery training as we have today? That is, we have 3 years general surgery and then 3 years of urology. Can we make it a simplified way of having starting urology training at the internship, post-internship level and continue for 5 years? This is what Professor Chinnaswamy has been harping, have been wanting for a long, long time that we should change. Now, I would like the opinion of all the three, starting with Sanjay Mallikarjuna, because he's the youngest and he has done MCH. I know that he has gone through the phase where all of us in India have gone through. I did my MCH in 1968, but you did maybe much later. But again, the same thing that occurs going on, that should we have these changes, are they necessary? Can you answer all the three questions succinctly but briefly? So time is not wasted. Malik?
You're on mute.
This is a thing which is a perplexing question majority of the time. You see, the problem is we had evolved the existing system 50 years ago with the available general surgical techniques and available urological techniques existing at that point of time. And if that is going to be true, how can that be suitable now? It is, of course, not suitable. That itself means, are we wearing a similar sort of a dress sense from that to this? No. We have a change of our own pattern of disease, modality of treatment of disease, detection of disease, everything has changed. In which case, a similar system of training of a similar duration doesn't work well. In fact, I would say, my feeling is every urologist needs some basic surgical training, which may last for 1.5 to 2 years, following which is going to work for the next 4 years inside urology. And at the end of last 1 year or 1.5 years, he may get the subspecialty of the urology happening at that point of time. So I would say...
Malik, can I interrupt you for a minute?
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
What I've been finding out in my talks with various people, even the general surgical team, the general surgery or surgeons, the influx of students are so many. Every department or every medical college or every center which is imparting MS general surgery or diploma in general surgery have got so many students themselves. Now, if you want your trainees to go there to 1 or 2 years, they are finding it very difficult to accommodate them. And this is a reality that's happening in India. Now, how do you think this can be solved?
Sir, one thing, we always think that it is always, if you see the original American system, sir, there were 20 interns which have been inducted into general surgery. After 1 year, 10 people have gone into the original thing and 10 people are not becoming surgeons. So, see, whenever you have a system, the people start living in an environment and develop that culture in their mind living together. They are not going to do any surgery. They are not going to, they learn basics of surgery. They watch much more than surgery and they do less amount of surgery. So you may have 20 trainees, the same general surgery batch at the end of 2 years may have only 10 trainees as senior residents or higher residents. So the 20 people will stay in general surgery. At the end of 2 years, they come back to the urology team to do what? In a deputation, they go around. But the basic training is going to be the same in the first 2 years for everybody. Any surgical specialty may not be for majority of the surgical specialties. And then they need to go for the next 2 years.
So you think that minimum 2 years of general surgical training is required?
Is required, sir.
Before they come to urology.
Then they come to urology for the next.
Why can't the urologist himself train?
Sir?
Why can't the urologist himself train the general surgery that is needed for the urologist?
So the one problem here. You see, as the time passes by, 10 years down the lane, you think about 10 years down the lane, each department will have all conglomeration of specialist urologists coming to one department and dividing the department. There is no general training which exists at that point of time. So the basic training has to happen in a general environment. It cannot be by specialists. That is the problem today in majority of the DNB institutions, in urology too. Majority of the times they are doing some part of the work and they are not doing the rest of the part of the work. So the coverage is not going to be complete.
So am I to understand that subspecialties are not necessarily to be trained at this level, or they should be trained only after post DPNB or MCH?
Sorry to interrupt, Dr. Venugopal. Dr. Desai wants to come in. He's been raising his hand.
Yeah. Please.
You know, when we joined the urology, that time urology was a subspecialty to general surgery. Now in urology, now we are there for 30, 40 years. Now I am the chairman of the board of specialty in DNB. And this year we have decided that we will have the fellowship, because it is a need of the time that after doing the basic urology, you got to pick up the subspecialty in urology. And now we have the subspecialty in transplant. We have in pediatric urology. We have laparoscopy and oncology, laparoscopy and robotic surgery. And we have one more. So what we have decided that after doing the DNB, you can spend 2 years more and then become a transplant. That is a thing. So you can spend 2 more years doing the subspecialty. Then your ability to treat the patient and their complication with the utmost expertise. So
I have 2 questions to ask you.
Sorry.
In this regard, I have 2 questions to ask you.
Yeah.
One is, majority of Indians who are doing MCH or DPNB are in the early 30s or mid 30s, and they have already got a family. And India is not such an affluent country where you can go on spending your time learning and learning and learning. There should be some sort of a limitation to which where we can. Now you say that after DPNB 3 years are over, 3 years of general surgery, 6 years are over, and now we want 2 more years of fellowship. Fine, I have no objection about fellowship for those who can afford. But not all Indian urologists can afford.
No, for that,
what are they going to do? What are they going to do for the majority? I'm not talking about the minority.
No. We have also considered the financial liability which the fellows will have. India needs specialists. That is the one.
I don't disagree with that.
Second thing, let me. Now we have recommended that the minimum salary which the fellow will get would be 2 lakhs, and would have the facility to stay. He'll be also sponsored for the traveling, for the conference and things like that. So we have made it such a way that that person can afford to go. So if person is
Mumbai, Mahesh, in a city like Mumbai, in a hospital like Tata, they are paying 35,000 rupees for a fellow who is doing oncology or oncology. I mean, how can we expect?
Now it is not 35,000, it is 70,000. It is changed, it is 70,000.
Okay, you want 70,000.
Yeah.
Today,
that is a DNB guidance. And now we are recommending if you are doing a fellowship after DNB, it will be 2 lakhs.
I'm just asking you whether this can be made a part of your training program where they can be exposed to subspecialties as well. Because majority of them are still going for practice. Majority of the students are not going for academics. They're going for practice.
During DNB, they would be exposed to all the branches. And then if the person wants to, like say I have a student who was with me and he decided he wants to do only transplant. And then he went to Delhi and then now he is doing only transplant. And he wanted a mix. So there are people who would, after 3 years of training would decide that I want to do a pediatric urology or I want to do this urology. So we should encourage them.
I do agree with whatever you're saying. I do agree with whatever you're saying. But India being such a vast country and financially not very well off people are also there. Now, I'm not just declaring what you're saying is incorrect. I am fully for it. But I'm only questioning from the other side, the double certificate. Like, if they don't have the facility, why can't we train them so that they will have one option when they go for practice, they can have one art or one extra specialty attached to them instead of fellowship. If that can be incorporated into your timing, in that case, should we increase the number of years of training for different and MCA? Let me remind you that MCA 3-year program was started by me in Manipur, and it caught on in the whole country and it became a norm. Initially, when I don't remember whether you know it, because MS General Surgery and Urology were only 2 years. So urology training for me was 2 years, not 3 years. So from that time, when I took over and when I started my MCA program, I decided it should be a 3-year program. And somehow I was lucky that MCA also approved of it and it becomes a 3-year program all over. Now, same thing happened to MPUH. The question that I want to know is how much of our students, our trainees, can all of them go for a fellowship of specialty, not post-planting. So what solution do you have for them? Because specialty is going to come. There's no doubt about it.
Can we get Sanjay's view on it as well? Sanjay, please.
Yeah. So, Professor Venugopal, we need majority, about 80% of our urologists will go into private practice. But those who want to join institutes like what MPUH join Professor Mahesh Desai or Mallikarjuna, they don't want a general urologist. They want a specialist. They want a person doing only one surgery, one disease. You agree with me, Malik?
Not necessarily. But question is, you see, the demand, if you look at the demand into the General Society of India today, you need 80% of them as general urologists and 20% of them are specialists.
Correct.
You look at 80% of the training part. If you look at the training part, we want somebody to get out of the place and be able to do majority of the routine procedures which necessary. Correct. And rest of the 20% of the things can be taken care of by this 20% of the people.
That's exactly what I want to hear.
That's
exactly what I want to hear. How much importance should we give for subspecialty training during the process of the training?
Sir, that has to be given as a choice, as Dr. Mahesh was talking about. You see, at the end of, the government is dictated by two things. One, we create a specialist urologist for a general public. To become a specialist himself or not is going to be decided by his performance, his abilities, and what he wants. So we cannot create a aura around it. So he's left with a choice whether he goes back and does the practice, or he's going to select for a subspecialty training wherein he's going to live with a difficulty for some time and to see a good fruit at the end of the day. He is not going to make money immediately. So the question is, the choice of becoming a subspecialist or a super specialist is going to be by the fellow on his own. We cannot dictate it.
Mahesh, I'd like to ask you a question which I asked Mallikarjuna some time back. Do you think that in India we can have a system by which you can have a 5-year or 6-year program soon after internship, and so that you can get a urologist fairly well developed in all spheres, including maybe one subspecialty for a training during the second year? Is it possible?
It is possible now because basic training in surgery is necessary, whether it is 1 year, 2 years, or this thing. But then the maximum urology training. So 5 years training, if you say, or 5 or 6 years, would be good enough. But it should be in one place where you have a surgery, general surgery he does for 2 years, because general surgery is necessary. It is a foundation.
Today with all laparoscopic surgery, robotic surgery.
But
what is necessary? Anatomy is inside the urological anatomy, not gastroenterology anatomy.
So even if you're doing a laparoscopy, the anatomy doesn't change.
Inside doesn't change. Urological anatomy doesn't change.
if you have done
abdominal incision, stitching like that, and wound closure, suturing, are they all necessary in today's world? I mean, if you're going to put a buttonhole and we enter the abdomen, you suturing it, anybody can do.
No,
I think you don't need to have a trained, qualified urologist to do it.
No, sir. I have a point, sir.
If you have done open surgery, I think you would be a better surgeon as a urologist. Because anytime you have a complication in laparoscopy or robotic surgery, you have to fall back on open surgery.
Can I say something?
I think as a surgeon, I feel that open surgery is a foundation, and on that which you develop the laparoscopy, on that which you develop a robotic surgery.
But do you need 3 years for it?
No, it is not necessary to develop a 3 years. You can be doing 2 years, and remaining you have,
exactly what I'm trying to say. Why don't you do it?
You have to plan out.
We can train ourselves.
Dr. Bapat planned out that before person gets a DNB, he should have done 30 TURP. He should have done.
I made the process.
He should have done 40 URP. So some sort of a standardization should be there. So because if you've done a 30 or a 40 PCNL, then you would be well versed with not a procedure but a complication. I'm looking at how he is going to, if he's going to do PCNL like what I do, no problem. But if he develops a complication, if he treats it, he'll be a better surgeon.
Sanjay,
so you need a 30, 40, even now also in endourology, you have a 60 PCNL, 60 urotoscopy, 30 ESWL, and laparoscopy 100 or a robotic. So that is a requirement of fellowship for the endourology society, and we have to provide them. In general surgery, you have 2 years. General surgery, you have suppose 2 years training program. You should be a planned program where he should have done at least that much surgery.
Sanjay, please come in.
Let us go to Sanjay for his opinion.
No. So, we should have proper general surgical training, because otherwise we will become like gynecologists. When there is a repeat cesarean section, if there is a bowel adherent, they have to call a surgeon. If the open bladder, they have to call a urologist. That should not happen.
Dr. Mallikarjuna, please.
I have a point. Wait a sir. Well, listen to me. Basically, what is happening is we are looking at those people who are going to join today for just a urology 6 years. We are the heads of the department. Try to understand. 15 years down the lane, you have those people trained in the urology for next 6 years coming down to as heads of the department, who will not be able to train the same general surgical skills which we boast of today. So I would say that cultural thinking.
I'd like to ask you one question. You showed in your slides on left side all the old instruments, on the right side all new instruments.
There's no big difference.
How much of the old instruments are you using now?
There's no big difference between the two, sir. The shafts are longer, the tips are same, the handles are same. The shafts have become longer, nothing more, sir. So the tips are same, the handles are same. So there is no big difference, sir.
Mahesh, Bhaskar?
I will give a UK perspective. So I'll share about the UK training, which has changed in the last 10 years. So currently, a trainee who, after doing his MBBS, he does his internship, which is over 2 years, Foundation 1, Foundation 2. Then if, let's say, talking about a urologist journey, then they will do 2 years of core surgical training, it's called. In that, they will do general surgery, they might do ENT, they might do urology, they might do upper GI. So different surgical specialties, 4-month rotation for 2 years. After that, they might do 1 more year if they want to, they apply for urology. In urology, they do 5 years. There are index procedures. For example, TURP, they have to do 120 by the time they finish urology in 5 years. So there are index procedures that they have to do. The question is, do they have to, I think the crux, as I understand, do they have to do the old style MS general surgery for 3 years, where in 3 years' time, Yes, they've learnt everything, but a lot of it, if you then end up becoming a subspecialist endourologist, you will not use that skill or not as much. So, do you have to do a formal 3-year MS general surgery to be a subspecialist, let's say endourologist or enterologist is the crux? And we don't do it in UK, but then I don't think we can omit general surgery altogether. The question is, do you have to make it as formal as it is now? I think now, if you can answer, Dr. Mahesh Desai.
Now it depends upon the load. How much hospital has a load? If you have a high volume center, then in 2 years you can get enough training. But if it is not high volume but medium volume, then you need a 3 years. I think number of cases is important, and
in other words,
how much confidence you have that.
Mahesh, in other words,
I tell you my story. I did 3 years of general surgery.
Mahesh, let's not talk about our time, because let me tell you, we were all general surgeons. We became urologists and started practicing only urology. Let us not talk about that. We are talking about the current generation. My thing, the problem is only one thing, that I am not against any one of you. What I am discussing is like a double certificate. Please understand that first. It's not against any particular individual, or I am talking more like a double certificate. Take the opposite side, so that there will be some understanding on a very important issue. Now, we have been going on talking about this in time. Almost every conference, we have some corner, some discussion going on this subject. How much to teach? How long to teach? Now, I thought this is a good platform for all of us to discuss about it openly, so that this will become an important subject for others also to understand how, in what way we should train. The problem that is occurring is, in majority of the institutions, now you said high volume centers. Yes, good. But how many of them are high volume centers? Are the standard of training in every center of the country the same? Is there any uniformity? Can we bring in a uniformity? These are all questions that have to be answered. And I am sure Malik, Sanjay, and probably you can give some important importance to that, and give us some briefly some answers, so that the younger generation of urologists will feel comfortable at what they're doing.
You are absolutely right.
We've got 5 more minutes to wrap up. So if we can have a final word from all 3 speakers.
What I feel that looking at my experience when I did a general surgery, I felt I have a good knowledge, but not too much practical experience. I went to England, and I was getting more. I had no problem about knowledge because I had a knowledge, but I was getting more experience. That time I saw the urology, which was different, and then I worked in 5 years in urology before I came back. That time so time spent is worth in getting trained. And because your training is lifelong, your support for your treating the patient. What my boss used to say, you are doing exactly what I'm doing. I'm not very surprised about it. But when you develop complication, how you treat your complication, that is more important. Now, that's why you need a volume. I think that is one. Second thing regarding now that we have developed as a urology as a special, we have more than 4,000 urologists, and then every year 200 new members are coming. So now we need a subspecialty. Now you take...
No doubt about it. My subspecialties are there to stay. But how to integrate both with the backing or financial support and backing that Indian urologists have? This is the question that have to be answered. Now, we have discussed this enough. This will be a never-ending story. And I think if you ask Sanjay or Malli or others of the thing, even Zishan, probably Stefania may not know what we are discussing in this particular session. But definitely, this is a very, very burning issue of the country. And I think it's time that the next president-elect, Mallikarjuna, takes up this as an important aspect of his presidential tenure.
I'll conclude with one statement.
Please.
I always tell you this, sir. See, Filling the stomach is a basic necessity, and that will be looked by the government. What are the dessert you want to eat is your choice and depending upon the need. We cannot decide on it, sir. So let's look at only filling the stomach. We need general urologists for this country, and let us look into that part of the training. Rest all is their own. If there is a demand, they'll be looking for it. If there is no demand, they'll shy away and be a general urologist later. So it's a demand and supply set, basically, which will create that need or no need about it. Today there is a demand, so everybody looks at.
Malli, let me put it the last comment I'll make, then we'll close up. Today the main problem that you're facing is everyone that I heard in the last 8 months of webinars, which I attended almost all, and the constant statement is refer cases to higher centers. Now, if every patient in this country has to refer to higher center for treatment, I can understand Sanjay Kulkarni is a specialized area where many urologists even today dread to threaten that area because they want results. And general urologists are poor in uteroplastics, that I will definitely agree. But the problem is, when you have got such a area where you definitely have to have maybe, I lost a track. As I said, the main thing is that you have to understand one thing, that we have to have specialists. There's no doubt about it.
We do need. There is no doubt.
At the same time, we have to have generalists to serve the needs of the millions of peripheral people. And if we expect all patients to be referred to higher center, it is not going to happen. So what I would suggest is that every center train the trainees in 3 years or 4 years or whatever time that people decide, at least 6 months to be specialized in a subspecialty. And that 6 months in a subspecialty, maybe somebody else will get trained in some other subspecialty. If that is taken, when he goes to practice, he will have some up 1 inch taller I can stand and say, I can do this better. And this is what I think is the need of the day. And I hope we had a good discussion on this topic, and I'm sure the younger generation will think over and brood over whatever has been discussed. And I'm sure Mahesh, Sanjay, Stefania, and my good friend Malik will take it up in various forums and see how best we can train our urologists should not be second to anybody in this world.
Thank you.
We should be the first.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anu.
Thank you, Dr. Venugopal. Thank you, Zishan. Thank you, Stefania, Dr. Mallikarjuna, Dr. Mahesh Desai, Dr. Sanjay Kulkarni. Look, it's a real honor for me to be an Indian at heart and be in UK and still host all of you. You know, I'm really proud that you all could join. And Dr. Venugopal, special thanks to you for making the rapid fire fiery. I think that's generated a lot of good discussion around training. Thank you once again, everyone.